Greetings, RV Mass Volunteers. My name is CJ Brummett. I'm the lead pastor of Newsong Church, located in Centerton, Arkansas. That's in the very northwest corner of the state. Please watch now as we take you on a video journey, our presentation for Newsong Church. Newsong Church, planted just a little under 9 years ago. Like many church plants, we started with humble beginnings, meeting in a local elementary school. We did that for 3 years, setting up and tearing down every weekend. We put all of our equipment in a 16-foot enclosed trailer. It seemed hard then, but we're actually thankful for that time. It created a sense of community that I don't think we could have accomplished any other way. God used that time to bring us together, create a close-knit church, a family church, a church that loves kids, loves God, loves the unsaved. I remember those times in the school using every available space. We even had our nursery down one hallway just using baby gates to keep them from spreading out through the school and losing them. It was a fun time. There were a lot of funny things that we remember from that time, but we felt God moving. We were growing. We needed more space. We also needed something semi-permanent. We weren't ready to build, but we found a local storefront. It was actually 5 separate shops all connected that we were able to open up and turn into one building. We've been there now a little over 6 years. It served us well, but we're at the point now that we're outgrowing that building as well. God's been gracious to Newsong. We've seen it since the beginning. We've seen it in our history. Our church was planted by Jim Severn. Jim Severn was my youth pastor from the time I was in 7th grade. Eventually, God moved Pastor Jim on to Indiana, where he became a lead pastor of a church there. Meanwhile, in northwest Arkansas, a local pastor, Pastor Jonathan Watson of Bella Vista Assembly of God, as he would pass through Centerton, he would just feel God prompting him that there needed to be an Assembly of God church there. In a meeting with local ministers, Pastor Jonathan began to share his desire to find a church planter to plant a church in Centerton. In that meeting, Brad McMath, who was pastoring Huntsville Assembly of God in Huntsville, Arkansas at the time, yes, Brad, one of the old youth group members, one of my best buddies, he thought of Pastor Jim and told Pastor Jonathan, "I think I know someone you should talk to." The call was made. Pastor Jonathan and Pastor Jim were introduced, and there began the sweet beginning of a church plant in Centerton, Arkansas. Everything was going fine. The church was growing. We were doing well, but a year and a half into the church plant, Pastor Jim got sick. We didn't know what was wrong, but just 2 short months later, Pastor Jim went on to receive his reward. He passed away in September of 2009. The church was devastated. We didn't know what to do. Even myself, who had come alongside him with my wife and my young children, had come to help, and we were lost. We didn't know what to do without our senior pastor. At the funeral for Pastor Jim, I met a young minister named Roger Coleman. He was hired by Pastor Jim in Indiana. It was Pastor Roger's first assignment as a youth pastor. Pastor Jim mentored him, and later, Pastor Roger went on to become a senior pastor himself. At the funeral, what I didn't know is Pastor Roger had heard from God. He didn't know me, but God had spoke to him and said, "There's the next pastor for Newsong Church." Meanwhile, the Arkansas district began to talk to Lynn Severn, the widow of Pastor Jim, and said, "Let's work together to try to find a new pastor for Newsong." They thought of several candidates, and she happened to think of Pastor Roger Coleman in Indiana. Thought he, of anybody, would know the DNA of Newsong, having been mentored by Pastor Jim. What Lynn didn't know is Pastor Roger and his wife Sharon were already waiting for the call. When they called him, they quickly accepted, became the next pastors at Newsong Church. After being there a year, they sat my wife and I down and told us the news. While at the funeral, God had spoke to them clearly that I, CJ Brummett, and my wife, Jennifer Brummett, and at that time our 2 young twin boys, were to be the next pastors at Newsong Church. I can't say that I was thrilled. I never thought of myself as being a pastor, and quickly said, "You better pray again, because I'm not going to be a pastor." But how we all know how God can prove us wrong, I began to pray, and God made it obvious to me and to my wife that we were to be the next pastors at Newsong Church. Now, just 5 short years later, we're averaging around 120 people at any given Sunday. 40% of that sometimes is kids under the age of 11. If you want to talk about crowded, just come in on a Sunday morning at Newsong Church and try to move from the front door to the coffee station, which is a little less than 30 feet. It may take you 15, 20 minutes to get there, depending on how packed it is. We are definitely at a point that we need God to help us get into more space. Also, recently, we joined efforts with a local Hispanic congregation out of Rogers to plant a Hispanic work out of Newsong Church. this congregation's growing. As of last week at a 3-day revival, by day 2 of the revival, they'd reached 75% capacity in our building. It's another reminder, more evidence that the time is now for Newsong to expand our borders and move to a new campus. So where does this leave us now? God, in his ultimate strategy for Newsong, led Pastor Jim to purchase 5 acres of land, literally in the middle of nowhere. At one time, it was all farmland, pasture land. But since then, they built the 5th largest high school in the state, just catty-corner to our land. We're right next to the elementary school we met in. And the city purchased 15 acres behind our land, where they've already built 1 ball field and later will be a complete sports complex. Across the street from us, a local developer decided to build over 150 homes. A few years ago, people began to call me asking if they could purchase our land. Even the city wanted our land. What seemed like an out-of-place, in the middle of nowhere piece of property has now become the new hub of the city. God has planted Newsong in the right place at the right time. Won't you pray with us that God will speak to your heart, and if he's to lead you to our project at Newsong in Centerton, Arkansas, that not only will it be a blessing to us to partner with you, but God will show you, just as he has us, that he has big plans for Newsong Church. We love you. God bless you. Please come by our booth. We'd love to get to know you better. Thank you.